Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar on how to enter the Philippine market. Behind me is the map, actually. I know that everybody is very interested to meet our speakers and to listen to their presentations and, of course, gain pertinent insights on how to successfully enter and operate your business in the Philippine market. Before we proceed with our program, allow us to first acknowledge our valued partners, namely BPI, In Life Healthcare, and the PLDT Enterprise for their invaluable support to PFA's endeavor. We're happy to note that the Philippines is one of the most dynamic and fastest growing economies in the Asia Pacific, and it is one of the most attractive investment destinations for foreign franchise companies. To discuss further the opportunities and the key considerations in bringing franchise brands into the country, let's hear them later on. Of course, we have the experts to discuss that to you. By the way, we are now streaming this webinar live via Facebook page of the Philippine Franchise Association. I'm Dr. Carl Balita. I'm one of the board of trustees of the Philippine Franchise Association. Let's now start today's program with a message from the chairman of the Philippine Franchise Association. She's the founding president of Arispa Spa Solutions Incorporated, a multi-awarded entrepreneur and an advocate for MSME and the Filipino brand. Yes, the Filipino brand can. Please welcome Ms. Cheryl R. Quintana, CFE.
Thank you so much, Dr. Carl, and a pleasant good afternoon to everyone. I'm very glad to see all of you here in Zoom. And thank you very much for joining us today in our webinar, How to Enter the Philippine Market. This is part of the Asia Pacific Franchise Confederation's education program that is conducting a series of webinars to bring greater knowledge and understanding on entering various international markets in the Asia Pacific region. As I always say, the door is open for all of us and it is two-way. So we can bring our homegrown brands to the world, and we can also facilitate and help these foreign brands to enter the Philippine market. So this afternoon, I'm very glad to welcome all of you, and this activity hopes to accelerate the expansion possibilities in the Asia Pacific region and to push forward the export of more and more homegrown brands to different territories through franchising. Today, we are happy to provide salient information on entering the Philippine market related to the franchising sector. To learn more about it, we are grateful for our experts, our speakers today, who will share their expertise and knowledge on the following topics. First is the Philippine franchise trends and opportunities and tips how to succeed in the Philippines. Of course, we will be talking also on the Philippine franchise laws to discuss why we should consider franchising versus other types of starting up or business methods and laws and applicable provisions affecting franchising. We will also be discussing the best practices and key strategies on how to operate the foreign franchise brand in the Philippines. Indeed, this would be a highly informative webinar for all of us. Hence, I encourage all of you to stay tuned, take notes until the very end, and discover why the Philippines is one of the most attractive business destinations for foreign franchise brands and why franchising would be a very good mode of entry for expanding overseas and an effective strategy in increasing our global footprint. Once again, thank you so much and have a wonderful day ahead.
Thank you very much, our PFA chairman, chairperson, Ms. Cheryl Quintana, for your welcome message. And shall we say together? Yes, the Filipino brand.
Yes, the Filipino brand can. Thank you, Dr. Carl.
Fun friendship franchising. All right. Thank you so much, Ms. Cheryl. During the program, please feel free to participate in the discussion, and this is by actively interacting through the chat box. As a guide, let's practice and observe respectful comments in the chat box for a fruitful learning experience. Also, key in your questions at the Q&A box if you want any questions asked, and we shall be asking those questions to our experts during the open forum, which will come after their presentations. Let's now begin the session right away, starting with the presentation on the Philippine franchise trends and opportunities. Our speaker is the current president of the Philippine Franchise Association, who is also the CEO of FrontCorp Philippines, the country's premier franchise consulting company. He also leads the country's largest franchise matching company as the president of U Franchise. Please all welcome our president, Mr. Chris Lim, CFE.
Thanks, Dr. Carl. Welcome to everyone. Allow me to share my screen. Well, first of all, great to see all of you here today. Welcome to today's talk. A lot of us are interested in global expansion, and I guess the Philippines is one of the markets you were looking at. For the next 20 minutes, I just wanted to share a bit more about, just a basic understanding of the Philippine market, but at the same time, just an understanding as well of really a bit about the Filipino consumer and what the trends are happening, so that you know also how to adjust and what brands may possibly work better here in the market. And by the way, if you have questions, feel free to just ask it in the Q&A so we can answer it later on. I think first of all, it's understanding the Philippine geography. So the Philippines has about 7,100 islands with 3 big island groups: Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. Manila here is in the Luzon cluster, which is of course where the capital city is. But we do have 2 other major cities, namely Cebu, Davao, and a lot of other cities all over. But it's 7,000 islands, and that's going to be quite critical, and I'll talk to you about that a bit later. Now, just to have an understanding where the Philippines is now, we have about 113 million people, so the population is about 100 million. What's interesting here in the Philippines and why a lot of brands want to enter is that our average age is about 23 years old. Compare that to the other markets across Southeast Asia, where the average is closer to 30 or 35 years old. It's a very young demographic. A lot are in the working age, so you have a lot of disposable income. GDP per capita is still a bit in the middle to the lower end at $3.5 thousand dollars per capita. But another important thing with the Filipinos is a lot are English speaking. So if you're in the Philippines and you speak English, you'll be able to communicate with people. Some people may not be as confident speaking back to you in English, but majority would be able to understand English. And in terms of your marketing materials, even a lot of your franchise documents, you could keep them in English. The last thing to know about the Philippine market is that it's a 24/7 market. We have a big business process outsourcing market. So these are call centers, outsourced graphics designers, a lot of outsourcing who work a lot with Western brands, whether that's the US or Europe. So they are on 24/7. So a lot of them do have night shifts. So brands that cater to this 24-hour market can do a bit better. So convenience stores do very, very well here, especially because they're the only ones still open when a lot of these BPO workers get off the market, get off their shifts. Now, in terms of the franchise market specifically, we have about 2,000 franchise brands here in the Philippines. So there's over 2,000 franchise brands, and 66% of them are local, 34% of them are international. So a big slice of international brands here. These 2,000 brands have about 200,000 franchise stores. So on average, about 100 stores per brand. But some have 2,000 or 3,000, while some have 10 or 20. So it's quite a wide range. But because of this, we are the 7th largest franchise market in the world. So it's quite a mature market and a competitive market. But equally important for those looking at the Philippines is beyond the consumer market, it's become one of the training and talent hubs. So a lot of major brands, especially from the US, use the Philippines as their training hub. So they send their franchisees to the Philippines instead of the US to do training. So you could use it as a possible training hub if that makes sense to your strategy. as well as we have the largest number of certified franchise executives outside of the US. So a CFE is the mark of distinction, a certification within the franchise industry. So you do have a lot of talent that you can tap. And if you look at it, I know a lot of the brands here may be in the food sector, but the food sectors in the franchise industry is about 44% of the Philippines. We do have 27% in services and another 29% in retail. If you look at retail, you'll have whether it's 7-Eleven or pharmacies or fashion stores. But I think services is where a lot of excitement's happening right now. A lot of gyms coming up, dialysis centers, diagnostic centers, education centers, as well as micro lending and some financial institutions are franchising here in the Philippines. So as I mentioned, it's quite a developed market. So it's good, whatever your concept, it may be able to franchise here in the Philippines. That was just to set the basics of the market. And if you had questions there, please feel free to ask your question in the Q&A box. But I want to talk a bit more about some of the trends coming out, which we've summarized into shift: sustainability, hyperlocal, innovation, focused shift on consumer preferences, and this importance of time and technology. So there's one thing that's happened over the past 2 years, and actually even especially in the past year, is this idea of sustainability, now especially to navigate supply chain disruptions. So a lot of brands are being encouraged to do local sourcing, not just in the Philippines, but within their communities, because of all the supply chain disruptions. So everyone's adjusted both to importing as well as to looking at local sources, encouraging low carbon footprint, as well as buying more eco-friendly products. So this shift of sustainability is both altruistic, about saving the environment, but also just very practical, because you want to have a stable source, and a lot were impacted by all these disruptions in the global supply chain. So local sourcing has become has started to explode, and I would encourage you that if you start looking into the Philippines, do look at how to adjust your sourcing so that you can source some locally. Next is this idea of hyperlocal. So, the creation of stores on wheels. So if you're in food, it's really going closer to the community. So instead of creating very big stores, a lot have actually started to create smaller stores, small drive-through stores. There's an area in the Philippines where they use, think containers or slightly bigger than containers, and created that into a drive-through, whether that's for pizza, for chicken, and other things, as well as similar to the rest of Southeast Asia, a boom on delivery, drive-through, curbside pickup, where a lot of our major brands now experience about half of their sales as off-premise sales, actually closer to 60%. So more than half of their sales are off-premise. So a lot of brands are experiencing about 40-50% of their stores as dine-in, and the rest of their sales are takeout, delivery, as well as drive-through. So the idea here is make it easy for customers to order and make it and try to get closer to them. Very important with hyperlocal as well is that a big part of the franchise segment in the Philippines are kiosks, which isn't popular across the world. So kiosks are about 2 to 4 square meter stores that you can put almost anywhere. So that's how we try to get closer to the different communities and closer to consumers. One other thing we can look at is innovation. So new product development. There's been a lot of new product development over the past few years, but some of this has been done through co-branding. Milk tea is a famous one. So Chowking is one of our Chinese fast food QSRs. You started to have milk tea brands locating inside. Potato Corner, a French fries kiosk brand, partnering with Moonleaf to, paired with milk tea. So one thing when you enter the Philippines is beyond your brand, do look at possible co-branding collaboration, because not only does it bring in something new, it also helps you jumpstart the recognition of your brand. And we've also had brands that entered complementary categories, whether it's a coffee kiosk starting to offer popcorn or other things, other snack items. So innovation was quite critical throughout the past few years and will be continuing a critical component in the coming years. Then, of course, we have a focus shift in consumer preferences. So we've seen a good shift into healthy products. At the bottom right there is Pure Nectar, a cold pressed juice brand, but also a shift, to alfresco dining. We've seen a lot of brands shift to alfresco dining. Now that the COVID cases went down, we can see a shift back into dining, into indoor dining. But most brands still have a good alfresco presence because there's still a key segment that look at alfresco dining and realize the beauty of actually dining outdoors. The last out of shift is time and technology. So things that drive convenience, that save you time are now very critical. So we've seen lowering of people have looked at convenience more than loyalty. So they've been jumping and shifting different brands, looking at what makes it more convenient for them instead of just being loyal to one brand. As well as a shift to omnichannel, and you've seen this everywhere. Omnichannel being online, whether it's a website, whether it's through Viber, whether it's through Facebook Messenger, or an offline, your offline stores. So make sure you do have a good presence omnichannel, as well as social commerce and live streaming shopping is getting big, maybe a bit more for fashion and retail. So TikTok commerce booming in the Philippines, a very big component, maybe less for food, a bit more for fashion, beauty, and that segment. So if you are in that segment, do look at TikTok commerce or social commerce. And of course, in food segment, Cloud Kitchen. A lot of brands have been using Cloud Kitchen to penetrate new markets without having to invest in very costly restaurants. So we do have some brands who are able to deliver in certain areas, even if they didn't have a physical store, because they use the Cloud Kitchens to experiment a bit before they then invest in a full-scale store. So shift. So that's one of the trends. That's a trend that you need to look at. Now, stepping outside the trends, and I have maybe a few slides left. A few things to remember about Filipinos. So I want to make sure that we understand. Before I was with FranCorp or the franchising industry, I spent about 10 years working for Unilever doing global marketing. And the Philippines is very unique with this sachet mentality. Sachets, for those of you who don't know it, are these single-use packs. If you look at the image there on the lower left, that's a sachet of shampoo, Colgate, a toothpaste. Some are for food. Some are energy drinks or energy powders, milk powders. So almost everything is sold in sachets here. In fact, it's one of the few markets around the world where sachet is about 70 to 80% of the volume of the market. So this is important for your brand because as you enter the Philippines, the mindset of the majority is still that sachet mentality, whether it's installment payments or breaking down your offer into smaller digestible packets or payment terms does help a lot. So bundle deals, individual package. So don't expect anyone to pay anything, especially if you're in the service industry or education. Don't expect people to pay you for a year. You have to cut that down to a month or even weekly. We've franchised education outlets as well here in the Philippines. Our family, me personally, we've had to adjust a lot of the payment terms there. Sometimes you collect every 2 weeks, every week, and sometimes every month, but you do have to adjust that because of that sachet mentality. Food is, of course, always very big in the Philippines. Filipino love to eat 5 times a day. That's breakfast, lunch. You have a mid-morning a merienda, so that's a mid-afternoon snack, dinner, and you could have an after-dinner meal as well. So it's 4 to 5 times a day, and Filipinos love taking photos of their food. So if you are in the food segment, make sure it's IG ready. Filipinos are also very family oriented, so they do dine in bigger groups, but they're also very value conscious. So as you can see, it's a young population, but our GDP per capita is at about $3,500. So a lot of eat all you can, buffets, as well as buy one take one, have worked very well here. One of the, we've had buy one take one burger chains that have reached 800, 900 stores. Buy one take one shawarma chains. Even some milk tea have started to offer buy one take one. But as well buffets, Samgyeopsal, Korean barbecue has been doing very well, but a lot of them do offer eat buffet and eat all you can. So there is that value part of it. And the last, there was a global study we did when I was with Unilever, and there are basically two markets where celebrity endorsers do very, very well, and that's the Philippines and Brazil. So the Philippines, if you do have a popular celebrity endorser, or of course, right, these days, influencers, it does help a lot in terms of creating that credibility as well as traction for your brand. So just 5 things to remember about the Filipino population. And the last extra tip for you is probably when you think of the Philippines, you'll think of Metro Manila as an entry point. But don't concentrate only in Metro Manila. Do look at either Cebu or possibly even Davao as an entry point. Especially Cebu is a very dynamic market. Do look at that as a possible entry point, because Metro Manila, though it is the capital city, is very, very competitive. So some have looked at skip that and started to enter Cebu and Davao, and then spread over Visayas and Mindanao instead of concentrating and putting too much capital in the capital city. Now, how can PFA help? The Philippine Franchise Association is here to help you. We do have the largest franchise show in Asia called Franchise Asia Philippines. We do business-to-business session, discovery days. We also do certified franchise executive programs. So for you as business owners or your executive team, if you did want to get certified as a certified franchise executive, we do hold sessions in the Philippines, bringing in global trainers once a year or sometimes twice a year. So please do come to that. And we do also have network of experts we can connect you with. That's why we do have a lot of foreign franchise member brands and foreign franchises here from 7-Eleven, the BNI Group, Chatime, KFC, Mr. Donald, McDonald's. So a lot of the global brands are here in the Philippines. And we'll hear from one of them, a Taiwanese milk tea brand later on. And let me end with this. Franchise Asia Philippines. There's an international conference on June 7 to 8 together with a certified franchise executive. So if you're looking more at education, you look at that. Now, if you did want to enter the Philippines, do look with your brand. Do make sure you look at exhibiting in Franchise Asia, October 27 to 29. It will be in conjunction with the World Franchise Council meeting. So it's not only to enter the Philippines, but to penetrate the global market, because we'll have 40 associations in the Philippines. We're expecting a few thousand delegates to visit that expo. So please do watch out for that. That's October 27 to 29, 2023. With that, thank you very much. I just wanted to give you a flavor of the Philippines and the Filipino market. Happy to answer questions later on. But other than that, thank you very much. Good luck. And I hope you discover why it's more fun to franchise in the Philippines.
All right. Thank you so much. Indeed, it's more fun to be franchising in the Philippines. Thank you, President Chris. I won't forget, I took note of your shift. Sustainable, hyper-local, innovation, focus shift towards consumer preference, and time and technology. Thank you for the 6 points about the Filipino as a consumer. I'd like to recap that. We are into sachet. We eat 5 times a day rather, and we love taking pictures of our food and ourselves. And the background, we love that. Now we're actually the social media capital of the world. Family-oriented, meaning if you sell to one member of the family, most likely then the family goes to it. And we're very value-conscious. Eat all you can, text all you can, rise all you can, and everything you can. We love it. And popular celebrity endorsers. And of course, don't forget that Philippines is not only Metro Manila. Thank you very much, President Chris, for sharing
Thank you.
the latest trends and opportunities in franchising, and of course, in providing some key tips to succeed in the Philippine market. Now, we would like to proceed to our second session to discuss about why considering franchising and the legal aspects affecting it. Our speaker is an IP lawyer who received her Juris Doctor and creative writing degrees from the University of the Philippines. She received her LLM in IP from the University of New Hampshire School of Law, and received a Franklin Pierce Center for Intellectual Property Distinguished Graduate Student Award. She also works as an associate of Bengzon Negre Untalan. Please welcome attorney Carla Bernardo. Attorney.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Carl, for the introduction. Let me share my screen so that we can begin with our presentation. All right. I hope it's visible to everyone. Okay, so I will be here to discuss franchising in the Philippines from a legal perspective and how we can look into the laws that govern franchising. So here's a short overview of what I will be discussing quickly in the next 10 minutes. So an idea of what is franchising, why we should consider franchising in the Philippines, preparing for a franchise, and intellectual property basics in franchising. Actually, franchising as a term is technically not found in any of our laws, although it is governed by laws on contracts, intellectual property, and competition. It has been defined, though, in the case of Ashmore Tesoro versus Metro Manila Rich Traders, that it is a business method of expansion that allows an individual or group of individuals to market a product or a service and to use the patent, trademark, trade name, and the systems prescribed by the owner or the franchisor. It involves the use of an established business expertise, trademark knowledge, and training. And as such, the franchisee is required to follow a certain established system. Recently, it was defined in an executive order issued last May 2022, also titled the Strengthening the Franchising Industry for the Protection of Micro, Small, and Medium Enterprises. It was defined as a contract or agreement between a franchisor and a franchisee, where the franchisor grants the franchisee the right to operate a business according to his franchise system and during a particular term. It is also the right to use a trademark, trade secret, confidential information, or other IP owned or related to the franchisor. In a franchising system, it is the franchisor who possesses the right to control the administration over the franchisee's business operation during the franchise in accordance with the established franchise system. And in return for the grant of these rights, the franchisee is required to pay a fee or other form of consideration. So this is what we commonly know as the franchise fee or the royalty fees. So why do we consider franchising versus other methods of doing business? For the benefit of our foreign guests or foreign participants, there are certain limitations to establishing business in the Philippines. Well, I will not go into so much detail about that, but there are certain industries that have foreign equity restrictions. You can actually look for it through Google or through a quick internet search for foreign negative list. So there are certain industries that do require limitations on foreign ownership and would also have certain capitalization requirements. But franchising would enable you to enter the Philippine market through a Philippine franchisee and would not have as much restrictions as entering the market yourself or establishing the business in the Philippines yourself. So what are the laws affecting franchising? So like I said earlier, there are no specific laws governing franchising. However, they are regulated by certain applicable provisions of the Civil Code of the Philippines, the Intellectual Property Code or the IP Code, the Corporation Code, and other relevant special laws such as the Data Privacy Act and the Philippine Competition Law. So as we prepare for a franchise, for example, you've already decided on entering into a franchise agreement in the Philippines, there's certain information that needs to be exchanged with your intended franchisee. And while there is no law requiring any formal pre-contract disclosure in the Philippines, potential franchisees are advised to exercise due diligence before engaging in franchising business with a franchisor. It's always a good reminder that the franchisor and the franchisee are not on the opposite ends of an agreement, but rather they are partners. They're not opponents, but partners. And so, in doing these discussions, you need to exchange information on contact details. So, obviously, business address, email address, websites, and other numbers, parent companies, and affiliates. So, it's important to determine whether there are other parties and affiliates who will be taking part in the franchise system. The names of the members of the board of directors and officers with a brief description of their qualifications and background, or if there are ownership interests and references. The number of years the franchisor company has been in operation, and the number of years it has franchised the business, with corresponding numbers of company owned branches and franchise outlets. This information will certainly be helpful for potential franchisees in determining whether or not their investment in the franchise system of the franchisor will be successful, since the number of years and of operation will determine whether or not they will be able to thrive and whether or not they will be able to seek help from the franchisor. So, of course, contact numbers of even the other existing franchisees in the Philippines, if there are any, as well as a certificate attesting that the franchisor is a member in good standing of any franchisor association and has no pending administrative, civil, or criminal cases against it. There will also be exchange of information regarding the description of the business concept, and this includes the brand image, brand personality, unique selling proposition, target market, and the mission vision of the entity. If the franchisor can provide the franchisee with a draft franchise agreement, that would be helpful so that the franchisee can quickly evaluate the terms of the agreement, the details of the intellectual property used in the franchise business, basic information on the training, commercial, and or technical assistance that the franchisor can provide to the franchisee. Of course, there will also be a discussion on the initial fee amount that will be collected and services covered by these fees, as well as a full disclosure of the financial requirements of the franchise business and other earnings information for the franchise business so that the franchisee can assess whether or not they can fully recover their investment in a certain amount of time. So IP basics in franchising, since there are certain types of intellectual property that will be included in the franchising agreement, it's important to be familiar with them. So the rights under the Philippine IP Code include the following: trademarks, copyright, patent, and as you can see, there are other types of IP rights as well, such as utility models, industrial design, geographic indications, layout design of integrated circuits, and trade secrets. So as a general overview, patents usually involve inventions, trademarks usually involve branding and logos, and copyright involve artworks, scripts, advertisements, audiovisual works, and computer programs. So just to give you a contextual example of these types of IP rights. So for example, you are a franchisor for a gym or a training establishment. So copyright will cover your music, artworks, and advertising materials. Patents might cover your gym equipment. Trademarks will definitely cover your branding or your logo. Industrial designs might cover the design and shape of your gym equipment. Layout design might cover the circuits that compose the microchip of the gym equipment, if ever you have new electrical equipment. And protection of undisclosed information or trade secrets will cover your special business method, for example, training for your instructors. Okay, so why does intellectual property matter? Because franchising refers to the method of practicing and using another person's already perfected business concept. And in that franchise relationship, the franchisee is granted the right to market a product or a service under a marketing plan or a system that already uses a trademark, name, logo, and advertising owned by the franchisor. So the franchise agreement will definitely cover certain types of intellectual property, and so it is important to be familiar with it. In the Philippines, franchise agreements are considered technology transfer arrangements under the IP code. And as such, they have to be compliant with certain rules and regulation on licensing. Technology transfer arrangements normally need to conform to sections 87 and 88 of the IP code. If they conform to these provisions, need not be registered with the Bureau in the Intellectual Property Office. However, if they don't conform with these provisions, then they shall automatically be rendered unenforceable, meaning you can't enforce them to other parties unless you apply for an exemption in exceptional and meritorious cases, which you need to request from the Bureau in the IPO, the ITTB. I listed down some of the prohibited clauses under the IP code, which we will not go into much depth because I know we are working on limited time. But definitely, these prohibited clauses, such as tie-in purchasing, price fixing, restriction on production volume and structure, prohibition on the use of competitive technology in non-exclusive agreements, full or partial purchase options, free grant back provisions, payment for unused patents, export restriction, restriction on the use of the technology after the term of the franchise agreement, payment for expired patents, non-contestability of patents, R&D restriction, adaptation or innovation restriction, hold harmless clauses, or other clauses with equivalent effects, meaning clauses that are considered anti-competitive or abuse your dominant position or monopolize the industry that you are working with. These will definitely be considered prohibited clauses. We also have mandatory provisions, which are required to be included in franchise agreement. Franchise agreements must be governed by the laws of the Philippines, and the venue shall be the place where the licensee has its principal office. The franchisor must provide continued access to improvements on its techniques and processes related to the franchise agreement. There must be an arbitration clause where the venue of the arbitration shall be the Philippines or any neutral country, meaning a country that is neither the licensor nor where the licensee was organized, registered, or existing. And tax liability, so it's mandatory to include that Philippine taxes shall be borne by the licensor. So I know that that you may have more questions on franchise and licensing in the Philippines. I would like to share with you that our firm, Bengzon Negro Untalan, has provided a Q&A or a guide on Philippine franchise and licensing at the Legal 500 website. So if you just go to this website and search for Philippine franchise licensing, you can see a more comprehensive guide, and there will be more questions and answers for you related to this topic. And so thank you so much for listening, and I hope that this talk has been enlightening to everyone who participated in today's session. Thank you so much.
Yeah, very enlightening indeed, Attorney Carla. Thank you so much. There are actually questions ready for you, but I'll reserve that in a little while. Thank you. That's very comprehensive, really. I myself would have some questions to ask. And now we can proceed to the sharing of our franchisor that has acquired the Philippine master franchise of a well-known specialty brand in Taiwan, and is now aggressively active in its global expansion in Asia and Europe. Our speaker has been in the food and beverage business for over 20 years and brings with him great insights and appreciation about global brand acquisition and mobilization in the Philippine market. A simple yet passionate visionary, please welcome the President and CEO of TrueWin Philippines, Mr. Gilbert Jim.
Hi, thank you, Dr. Carl.
Hi, Gilbert.
I will share my presentation. Okay, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Gilbert Jim. I would like to share some tips in entering and operating in the Philippine franchise market. I'll be showing you some best practices, key strategies, and success factors for your brand to thrive here in the Philippines. For this case study, I will be using TrueWin. TrueWin is a Taiwan brand. It originated from Taiwan. It's selling fruit tea and soufflés. It has over 30 plus, almost 40 outlets in Taiwan. And currently, it is present in 4 countries, namely Taiwan, Japan, France, and here in the Philippines. Soon, by mid of 2023, it will be in South Korea, Dubai, and Vietnam. So the TrueWin is the Taiwan group TrueWin. They are very aggressive in entering several countries because they want to become a famous international brand. So I acquired them because of the trust, and I will be sharing some of the things that they consider or we consider when we get them here in the Philippines. So we have several mode of entry. Number one is a franchising, licensing, joint venture, or direct investment. Right now, I'll be focusing on franchising. This is the advantage for this is we have a low cost of entry and a lower risk compared to all other modes of entry. The franchise partner, when we have a franchise partner here in the Philippines, we knew or they knew about the local market, the preferences in products, and all the culture and political issues that the other foreigners or foreign brand has to deal with. The local franchise partners can easily handle that for them. So there's no learning curve for this type of setup. Of course, there are some disadvantages. Number one, when the franchise partner here is not competent, there's a threat to your brand. For example, if their reputation is not good, so the brand, the foreign brand will be destroyed. For all other, another disadvantage is that when we have franchise in our local country, we have the complete control over the franchise system. But in other countries, there might be a little leeway that the local brand or the local franchise partner will have, so you don't totally have a complete control over your system. But that is quite minimal. So I would like to talk about the factors that we consider when we brought TrueWin here in the Philippines. Number one, it's a market attractiveness. What is the preference of the local market? The leadership, decision maker involved here in the engagement, the capabilities of the franchise partner, and the values of the franchise partner. So these are the factors to consider. I'll start with the market attractiveness. So the question to answer is your brand or product acceptable here in the Philippine market? For TrueWin, since it offers fruit tea and juices, this is how it looks, no? Right now, what does the Philippine market prefer? As a tropical country, the Filipinos or the locals, they're accustomed to cold fruit-based beverages because it's so hot that everybody would like to avail of fresh fruit beverages. They drink a lot of juices. So as you can see, the fruit tea is a perfect product for the Philippines. Also, the tea-based drink has been very popular for the last 2 decades. They started with the milk tea. So both of the products, the fruits and the tea, they are very preferred here in the local market. So that's why the TrueWin, the product, the brand, and the services or the products it offers, it's very welcome here in the Philippines. Another product offered by the TrueWin is the souffle, Japanese souffle. It comes in sweet and savory variants. Of course, the Philippine market, we have sweet tooth. Most of the people like desserts. They like the pastries They like baked items, egg-based, freshly baked items. So luckily, souffle is one of them. So there's a very big appeal on the market when we introduce the souffle here in our shop. So this is why the True Win is very preferred, or we don't have much problem introducing them to the local market. Another is the leadership or the decision makers. Who signed the contract? Who requested the franchise or to become a master franchise? Is the person or a group of person, are they actively involved in the day-to-day ventures, or do they just assign a manager to take care of the brand? So we have to consider that when we bring the brand here in the Philippines, because it will be very helpful when the business owners, the decision makers are the one who the master or the franchisor talk with or discuss with or brainstorm with. It will be a lot of help for their brand to thrive here in the Philippine market. It makes everything so much easier when the owners or decision makers are involved. Another is the capability of the franchise partners. What does the franchise partner have existing business that complements to their brands or products? For me, I've been in the food and beverage industry for quite some time. So when I brought in TrueWin, we were able to produce some of the finished products, some of the ingredients we do it locally because of freshness. So we have the capability to complement their products. That's why they considered us. Another is that are we in the same industry, or do we operate the same business model? Yes, we do. I already have I'm in the food and beverage industry for quite some time, and I have operated, aside from manufacturing, I've operated some kiosks, full store, full dining, a standalone setup. So it's easy for us. We already have the expertise in the team to open and manage the brand. How much resources will be allotted to your brand? Does your franchise partner have funds allotted for them to do marketing, to market your brand so that people will know about it because it's new here in the Philippines? It might be famous in Taiwan, but here in the Philippines, some new, those who went to Taiwan before, some doesn't. So we have to market it. We have to allot certain funds for that. I have to allot a team, a manpower, to focus on making the brand sustainable. So how many outlets are we about to open for a year, for the next week? We have a lot of funds for that. So you have to consider if the franchise partner here in the Philippines are the resources of the capability can help your brand properly. Of course, even all of them, even if they have funds, you have to make sure that supply chain, you have to sustain the supply chain. We can deliver to the outlets. For example, we open 30 outlets. We have to be able to deliver the ingredients, the raw materials, the packaging. We have, for TrueWin, our biggest inventories will be fresh fruits. So we'll be able to source the fruits, the fresh fruits. Sometimes we have to import them, and we are able to supply. These are all considered when we do the discussion with the franchisor in Taiwan. They have considered all these things with us. So before they let us become the master franchisor, because they believe we can handle their brand and their products properly. And lastly, which is the most important one for me, is the values of the franchise partner. Do we have the same style of doing business? How do we pay our supplier? How do we pay our employees? How do we do business with other people? What is our priority? Quality over profit, or vice versa? how do we treat our employees, how do we treat our partners, the customers. These are values, the corporate culture. It has to be aligned with yours. So me, I think for the Taiwan group and the Philippine group, we have almost the same values. We know each other for quite some time. That's why when we open TrueWin here in the Philippines during pandemic, we have a easy time opening it because when there will be issues, we easily talk and discuss and brainstorm so we can do the solutions. So these are some of the things that I think will help your brand thrive here in the Philippine market. I hope you learned something from this talk. That's all, Dr. Carl. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gilbert. You're really selfless in sharing those best practices on how to succeed in the Philippine market. I would have a question for you as well. At this point, we'd like to invite our participants to please key in your questions at the Q&A box so that we can answer them for you. And we'd like to welcome back our president to join us. Ms. Cheryl can also give us a lot of light in terms of our experiences. And of course, Attorney Carla. All right. And if you have some questions, please just key in. I'd like to ask the first question to Attorney Carla. I suppose this is for you. Is there a franchise act that legislates the franchise business? And if there's none, does it mean that any business can create their own terms and conditions in entering into a contract? Attorney Carla.
Yes, so as a general rule, we don't have a franchising act. However, in stipulating the terms and conditions, the parties must ensure that it is compliant with Section 87 and 88 of the Intellectual Property Code. Otherwise, it will not be enforceable against third parties. They also have to consider if the terms are compliant with the Philippine Competition Act. So basically, these laws ensure that the franchisor does not practice any anti-competitive or enforce anti-competitive measures or abuse their dominant position in the market. But generally, they are free to craft the terms and conditions of the contract as long as it is compliant with Section 87 and 88 of the IP Code.
Yeah, I'm very interested to ask about that monopoly of the market because, you know, when I started, for example, my business, I positioned it in all cities and I'm the dominant brand. I don't know if I'm already anti-competitor. I have to call you on that. I'm glad that I already have a lawyer daughter who would be able to help me through it. I'd like to ask Mr. Gilbert about this. Did you have to make some adjustments? You know, we understand that we love sweets, for example, and we love to drink because we're in a tropical country. Did you have to make some adjustments the way other franchisors would do it for other countries to suit to the taste buds?
For TrueWin, we do have to adjust. The taste itself, we didn't have much adjustment, but we have to do the sizes. For example, the souffle, we have to make it bigger because here the market, we want value for money. So we have to make the size 25% bigger and larger. For the sweetness, since it leans on the healthy side, we just maintain the sweetness level of the Taiwan formulation. But we do adjust the size and some of the fruits that we have to use because not all fruits are available here.
And based on your strategy, where did you concentrate your expansion? I mean, your operations. Was it Metro Manila, the Metro Cebu? And where did you see the best potential as far as your product is concerned?
For the product, we concentrated first on Metro Manila because it's easier to operate here because the main head office is here. But we also have a franchisee in Cebu who's willing to open. But for the site, we first targeted the malls since we want people in the mall to during pandemic. It's easier when it started opening. We have to situate it in the mall so that the people are very excited to go to the mall. So there's a lot of people who know our brand. Then after that, we'll be opening outside the mall, but mostly Metro Manila, then Cebu.
Yeah, and for the information of everyone, Philippines has 7,000 plus islands, and there are as many malls as there are islands. You can just
Yes,
imagine.
yes, correct.
Yeah, and President Chris, yeah, you're into franchise consulting and also matching. How important is, for example, for our foreigners, how important is the engagement of a local partner who actually belongs to organization like the Philippine Franchise Association? How important is it in your models of making successful brands penetrate the Philippines?
Well, I think if it's finding a franchisee, the franchisee won't be members of the franchise association yet. But I think what's more critical is to understand their current business, of course. But at the same time, feel free to ask the Philippine Franchise Association if you have a potential partner, you're not too sure about them, you don't know much about them. Do ask us in the PFA. We're more than happy to share whatever insights we have of potential partners here. Dr. Carl, I see Chairman Cheryl has her hands raised.
Yes.
I think she wanted to say
Yes,
something.
Ms. Cheryl, I think you want to also comment on the Franchise Act.
Yes, Miss Carla actually gave a very comprehensive answer on the Franchise Act, if there is one, for the Philippines. Right now, there's no regulation on the franchising, as we all know, and the data shows that in countries where the franchising industry is highly regulated, it somehow stifles the growth of the industry. And for the Philippine Franchise Association, through its almost 3 decades of existence, we've been very strict on the fair franchising standards, which is the code of ethics in PFA. Hence, we're very particular in monitoring our members, our member brands, and PFA is actually a group of franchisors. Although our member brands are all franchisors, however, we have programs, several programs that caters to the franchisees and to the public in general, to create awareness, Dr. Carl, on franchising and how to avoid franchise scams. Because I think the one who was asking about it is quite also, they want to know if franchise brands are on their own in crafting their manuals, their agreements, the franchise agreements. And precisely with this, that we are very particular in helping our member brands to have the code of ethics observed. Recently, during the pandemic, there was a memorandum, there was an executive order through DTI on creation of a franchise registry. And we are closely working with the Department of Trade and Industry, through them to the Office of the President, and also with what Ms. Carla's mentioned on the National Competitiveness Council, as well as IPOFIL, in order for us to really help our franchisor brands be able to help their franchisees. Now, on this regard, if you have franchise brands that you wish to franchise, you wish to invest in, we could say that we could, vouch if there are members of PFA, and you can go directly ask the PFA through our secretariat, as President Chris was mentioning earlier, for us to help you with your due diligence. Now, if for brands outside the country, specifically for the Asia Pacific Franchise Confederation or the Asia Pacific region, if these brands are member of any of the countries that are member of APFC, we can also help you out in doing your due diligence, because all of these countries that are members of APFC also have their own code of ethics, and we can, of course, liaise with them, and help you get connected with the associations, as PFA is the current secretariat of APFC, and we're very active in our in our membership with the World Franchise Council and APFC.
That's very assuring, Ms. Cheryl, to make them feel good about the Philippine Franchise Association being their partners readily for, especially if they're entering the Philippine market as a franchise brand. There's a question from someone who represents the F&B concepts in Singapore, mainly from Robin Yo. And the question is, what types of food cuisines are popular for the Philippine market? And maybe Gilbert may have done a lot of studies about this. And of course, our franchise expert, Chris Lim, may add value to this, and Cheryl as well. Yes, please. Gilbert, what did you notice as cuisines that are more popular in the Philippine market?
Of course, the cuisines that we have right now is as long as there's rice-based rice, Japanese cuisines are popular right now here in the Philippines. We can see a lot of brands in Japanese thriving here, Japanese brands, and of course Taiwan products also. I can see several Taiwan brands starting to come in, restaurant-based. Those are our observation.
Yeah, and of course, we eat anything that has four legs except the table, anything that flies except the airplane. But there's so
Yes.
many. Even the Western food are now also becoming very popular in the Philippines. What about you, Chris? Would you like to add some, ideas on
Well,
this?
I think if you look at the Japanese restaurant, it started with the family restaurants where there's a mix of so many different items inside. But as the market matured, there's a katsu restaurant, there's a ramen restaurant, which is more typical of what Japan is, right? It's really a more focused menu. I think Korean restaurants is starting to do that. Well, Korean restaurants used to be big family restaurants. Now you have a Korean grill. And I can imagine that segmenting into a more, specific Korean dishes, especially, K-drama and K-pop, very big in the
Yeah,
Philippines, as well as
correct.
the rest of Southeast Asia. I can see that influencing cuisine. Maybe in terms of Southeast Asian cuisine, we do have a few Singaporean restaurants, Hainanese restaurants, but Hainanese chicken restaurants. But I'd say maybe something that's under tap, but I can see it growing is the Thai restaurant segment. So I've already seen it in the more leading edge, places in the Philippines, the more leading edge customers, but eventually that will get into the mass-based customers. I think getting the right mix of Thai food that's acceptable to the Filipino taste, but still, slightly adhering to the authenticity of Thai food. That's still not present here in the Philippines, but we can see a lot of them popping up.
Yeah, speaking from my personal experience, I would have my family go out for dinner or for a meal, and we will debate over many, very diverse choices. I'm also seeing some Mediterranean foods coming in. And of course, as far as drinks are concerned, we also love to experiment on really tasting what's there. And please don't forget that 10% of the Philippine population, about 10 million of us, are overseas. And you can just imagine if there's a brand overseas that overseas Filipinos tasted, they would love to brag it and bring their families to have a taste of it. So we have our ambassadors actually all over the world, and these are the overseas Filipinos. And Michael Mock is very interested if he can have a copy of the Code of Ethics for Franchise Business. And a question, is it a guideline or is it the compliance to the COE, a legal requirement, attorney? Is it a legal requirement?
This is,
Yeah.
I think this is more a question for PFA Chairman.
Yes, Ms. Cheryl, please.
Yes, well, we can share the copy of the Code of Ethics of PFA. In fact, all the franchise member brands of PFA, before they get accepted for membership, we really have a very strict screening for each of the brands entering PFA. So, Michael, we can share you a copy of that. Just get connected with the PFA Secretariat. If it is a legal requirement, not really, because there's no regulation, as I've said earlier. But we're very particular, in the observance of the Code of Ethics inside PFA.
So we're like self-regulating to protect the industry.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. There being no more questions coming from our participants, I think this ends our program already. Once again, thank you very much to all our speakers for sharing your expertise, and to all our participants for joining us today. We have learned, I personally took note of especially the shift of Chris and the 5 points plus 1, and of course the legal reminders of attorney and the experience of Mr. Gilbert for that. Thank you very much. The next AEP FC Education webinar will be on January 2023, organized by our colleagues from Taiwan, the Association of Chain and Franchise Promotion, Taiwan, on how to enter the Taiwan market. Thank you very much for being part of our conversation today. We look forward to seeing you more and to having you in our future events with the Philippine Franchise Association. This has been this has been Dr. Carl Balita, and thank you very much, Ms. Cheryl, President Chris, Attorney Carla, Mr. Gilbert, Jim. Good luck. I'll taste True Win very soon.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure.
All right, thank you. Great presentation, informative. We got very good feedback. Thank you so much. Keep in touch. If you're in the Philippines, the Philippine Franchise Association will be your partner, and let's all be prosperous, and let's all do business the way we should. And Chris reminded us of sustainability, the triple bottom line, because business is not just making profit, but it's actually discovering our purpose and making our enterprises create more jobs and do good for our community. God bless you all. Thank you so much in behalf of the Philippine Franchise Association.